What if I told you that the Buddha, he wasn't trying to start a religion, that his teachings, they weren't about faith or gods or rituals at all, but instead they were like a precise, testable science for ending human suffering? So, okay, let's really dive into this. We're going to strip away like 2,500 years of dogma to get to the core to find the original blueprint for what it means to be awake.
You see, the Buddha, he never asked for a single temple. He didn't ask for blind devotion. He didn't even want followers, really. What he wanted were explorers. People willing to test things out for themselves. He was pointing to this universal truth about liberation, a path that you're supposed to walk and experience directly, not just, believe in.
And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? On one hand, you've got what most of us think of, Buddhism as a religion, with all the rituals, the dogma, the temples. But then you look at what he actually taught, and it's something completely different. It's a practical path, it's all about direct experience, and it's laser-focused on one thing and one thing only: liberation. And that's the crucial point, right there. Think of it like a toolkit for your own mind, a kind of science of consciousness. The Buddha's invitation was so simple, so direct. He basically said, look, don't just take my word for any of this, test it. Go see for yourself if it actually works.
Okay, so if this is a science, what's the problem it's trying to solve? Well, the Buddha called it dukkha. And that's not just, stubbing your toe. It's this deep, nagging, existential dissatisfaction, that feeling that something's just not quite right. And what's amazing is that he pinpointed its source with just stunning clarity.
He said our suffering comes from this thing called tanya, which we usually translate as craving. But it's so much deeper than just, wanting a new car or something. It's that constant grasping, that constant pushing and pulling, wanting things to be different than they are. And the biggest piece of this, the absolute root of it, is our desperate clinging to this idea of a solid, permanent me. And this right here brings us to maybe the most radical part of his teaching. It's a concept called anatta, or non-self. What the Buddha said was that the I we're so sure about, this solid, continuous self that we think we are, it doesn't actually exist. Not in the way we think it does anyway. It's basically an illusion. So if it's an illusion, what is it? Well, he said what we call a self is really just this temporary bundle of 5 things happening all at once, what he called the skandhas. You've got your body, your feelings, your perceptions, all your thoughts and emotions, and your awareness itself. And all of it is just flowing and changing, moment to moment to moment. There's no permanent CEO sitting in a control room in your head. It's just the process itself. And seeing this, really seeing this, that's the key to everything. That's liberation. So, okay, if clinging to a false sense of self is the problem, then how do you solve it? The amazing thing is, the Buddha didn't just point out the problem. He wasn't just a philosopher. He was more like a physician. He didn't just give a diagnosis. He laid out a clear, step-by-step treatment plan, a practical blueprint for freedom. And this is it. This is the prescription, the famous Eightfold Path. You can think of it as a complete training program for your mind. It's really broken down into 3 main parts. First, you've got wisdom, so you can see reality clearly. Then there's ethical conduct, which is about aligning how you live with that clear vision. And finally, mental discipline, which is all about training your focus and your awareness. It's a totally holistic system for kind of rewiring your entire being. And guiding this whole thing is this really important principle, the middle way. I mean, you gotta remember, the Buddha tried both extremes. He was a prince who had literally everything, and then he became an ascetic who had absolutely nothing. And he realized neither one works. Neither extreme leads to the truth. Real clarity and freedom, they're found in balance. And that's what makes this a sustainable path for real life, not just for monks living on a mountaintop. There's this amazing quote from the Buddha that just perfectly captures the goal of all this. He said, "Just as the great ocean has but one taste, the taste of salt, so too my teaching has but one taste, the taste of liberation." It's so good, right? It means it doesn't matter where you dip your cup in. It doesn't matter which part of the path you're on. It all points to that one single experience, freedom, the complete and total end of suffering. Okay, now, here's where things get really fascinating. Because what the Buddha discovered, it wasn't some isolated event. It wasn't unique to him. This same fundamental truth, this idea about dissolving the self to find true freedom, it pops up in mystical traditions all over the world. I mean, just look at the parallels here. In Buddhism, the goal is nirvana, right? Dissolving that illusory self. Well, in the mystical heart of Christianity, it's about finding the kingdom of God, which happens through surrendering the personal self. And in Hinduism, you have moksha, liberation that comes from realizing your individual self is actually one with the absolute, with Brahma. It's incredible. They're using different words, different cultural frameworks, but the core idea is exactly the same. Real freedom is found when you transcend that small, separate self.
So what this really shows us is that the Buddha wasn't just inventing something new out of thin air. He was more like a master cartographer. He was mapping a universal human journey, but with this incredible precision. He laid out a direct, practical, totally non-religious path that literally anyone from any culture at any time could walk for themselves.
And that, of course, brings this whole thing right back to you, to us, right here, right now. Because these aren't just some dusty, ancient philosophical ideas we're talking about. This is a living, breathing invitation for you to explore the nature of your own mind. And it's so important to remember this. This path isn't about becoming a better person or adding some new skill or attaining something that you don't already have. It's actually a path of subtraction. It's about letting go. It's about peeling away the layers of illusion, all those false beliefs we have about who we are, to reveal the boundless freedom that has always been there, right at the core of your being. You know, there's this story. After Siddhartha awakens and became the Buddha, people were just stunned by his presence. They could feel something was different. And they came up to him and they asked, "Are you a god?" He said, "No." "Okay, are you an angel then?" Again, he said, "No." So finally they asked him the big question, "Then what are you?" And his answer, it was so simple, so profound, and it's really the ultimate invitation for every single one of us. He just said, "I am awake." See, he wasn't claiming to be a god or some special being. He was just describing a potential that lies dormant inside every single human being. The potential not just to believe, but to actually see. The potential to wake up.